Live.
Hi, everybody. My name is Debbie, and I'm with Jay Rothman, and this is our guest, David Strikel. He is pretty awesome. He's helped me through a lot of things, and I thought it would be very beneficial to bring him on to show other people how they can cope when they're kind of feeling a little bit low or down. We talk about some pretty heavy stuff on our show, and I thought that he'd be quite an amazing guest to bring on. How are you doing tonight?
Very good. I appreciate being here. And this is a topic that, if people don't know who I am or what I do, I channel spiritual guidance from a stream of consciousness that I call the stream. But I've used the stream's guidance through my entire life to overcome quite a few obstacles. And those of you that have read my book know my story. I sort of experimented with placing every obstacle just about you can imagine. When Jay and I first met, he asked what I'd overcome in my life. And I sort of gave him a very long list of things that I have overcome in my life. And now I make it my life's work to help other people overcome really anything from their past so that they can, as we like to call it, go up their spiral into more positive territory and live a more joyful, abundant life and a life of clarity, which is, as you know, that clarity is the key to joy when you really can shift your perspective on anything and detune it in your life. It really just lightens you up and frees you up like you've never been before.
Completely agree. And I've been following you and I'm reading your book, and I just find it's so. Today I was going to be late, and I realized if I'm going to be late, I'm going to be late, and that's just how it is. But I didn't panic or anything. I just kind of, and it flowed. I had green lights all the way through.
I'd like to take a moment just to say good evening to both you, Deb, and to our guest, David Strikel. If you hear me vibrating or if you hear some feedback, let me know, and I'll bring it down a little bit here. Uh, Welcome to Real People, Real Stories, Raw, David. I feel like we were just together just a couple of 24 hours ago, but it's been a couple of weeks now, and I'd like to welcome those that are jumped on and are with us live this evening. We are a global reach channel through Spirituality Gone Wild, and we have a community that reaches as far away as India. We've got Vimal Kumar. It is his morning time, but he is live with us starting his day, probably going to work today. We have Priceless Princess Jewel. I believe she's coming in from somewhere in the United States. For some reason, I struggle with that state that you're from. Priceless, let us know. We've got Dolly Blue coming in from the Philippines. And of course, we've got David's coming in from Palm Springs. And we've got Debbie coming in from the beautiful country of Canada. But in any event, it is Sunday evening here in the United States, where both David and I reside. And welcome to the show, David. I'm excited to have you here. You know, as Debbie said, in the past, we've had a lot of our focus has been on bringing guests on that have encountered some type of abusive relationships or assault in their lifetime, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or sexual, and assault or abuse. And you know, we felt that it's really important that we also invite guests on that can bring us a perspective of how to navigate through the healing process and how to heal the wounds and the traumas uh, from the events that have impacted the lives of our guests. And so Debbie and I felt that you are an appropriate individual to bring on to the show because of your background and the work that you have done, not only with others, but for yourself. And so, with that, welcome to the show, and I'm excited for us to jump in and head first here and have a great conversation.
I appreciate it. And I'm sure there's questions that will pop up, and I will certainly just allow you to sort of guide all of that. I'll give a little bit of background about me, just early childhood stuff, and that sort of seems to be the launch pad for just about everything in our lives that we manifest beyond that. It seems to be rooted in early childhood. And I know enough now about polarity and the law of attraction, all those things, to understand that all of this stuff is by design, that we sort of place ourselves in the paths of contrast from a soul consciousness perspective to come and have a human life. And those of us that choose a lot of contrast out of the gate are seeking a lot of expansion. And it's very hard to understand from a human perspective sometimes why a soul consciousness would choose to place themselves in the path of very disconnected parents or poverty or abuse of some sort. But from a soul perspective, and Deb, you're working with me in the Taya practice now. From a soul perspective, from an eternal consciousness perspective, it makes a little more sense. But there's a process for us to get there. There's not something that you're just not going to flip a switch and reach that place. But when you do, you realize that all of the things that you've endured in your life brings you to this deeper spiritual connection as a human being that most human beings don't make. Most human beings sort of live their lives on autopilot, doing as they're told. And those of us that suffer greater trauma are very often guided to go deeper, to make sense of it and figure it out and forgive it, as I like to say, all the way to the point of appreciation. And when you've suffered something very traumatic, and especially if it's recent, you may think that sounds insane. How can I appreciate someone that has abused me in such a way? But when you do, it's so freeing that that's what the Taya practice is all about, guiding you to being able to forgive anything from your past to the point of appreciation for you, so that you are lighter. You go, as we say, up your spiral, up into more positive territory, raising your default vibration, connecting more with source, which your source connection is up in positive vibration. And when you lighten the load of all of that stuff that you carry around, you can make that connection easier. And it's in reverse of what we often think. But when you do, you reach the state of joy and clarity. And we talk about abundance all the time. And yes, I know a lot of people think stuff when they hear abundance, and there's nothing wrong with stuff, but you don't even want or need stuff. You don't even want or need relationships. You get so high on that spiral and you get feeling so good about yourself again. All of that stuff doesn't matter. And then when you're there, the bonus is then the stuff flows in. The right people show up, the financial abundance, the excellent health, the releasing of physical pain. All of that is the benefit of finding your path up there. And that's available to everyone. And I work with people every day now that have suffered significant trauma, far worse than anything I've ever suffered. And my background is I lived in a very middle-class situation until age 6. When I came home one day, my father was just gone. He was home every day, every night, as far as I knew from that perspective. And he was just gone. And I walked in the house and met a very different version of my mother. She was at the kitchen table with my brother, very upset, told me that our father had left for another woman. She referred to this woman as a whore. Never heard that word before at age 6. That woman is now my stepmother, 45 years later. And that she was destroying our family, that our father didn't love us, and everything changed in that moment in my life. Very disruptive. Divorced my father, very bitter custody battle. One custody of us, moved us off to her hometown of North Louisiana, Minden, Louisiana, a small town, and then proceeded to lock herself at her room and be bitter for the rest of her life, for the next 40 plus years, about the divorce. We were never allowed to say our father's name. It was just a very odd existence. She made it very clear to me that she never wanted to have children. It became very clear to me that the custody battle was just to get back at him for leaving her, and told me at one point that she hated me. She suggested at one point that I commit suicide. There was a lot of physical abuse and things like that. She wasn't a horrible person, but she was a very, very, very disconnected, unhappy person, and lived, unfortunately, her whole life that way. And we finally started making amends in my early 20s, around 21, 22, and I started making money. I started helping her because we were very poor, and I bought her a dog, and I bought her new furniture and all of these things, and we kind of became friends. It wasn't a parental thing, but we were friendly. And then when I fell in love and told her that I was gay, she hung up on me and never spoke to me again for the rest of her life. For the next 20 years, never spoke to me again. I waited a year after that first event, tried to speak to her, told me I was dead to her, and that was it. We never spoke again. So that's my parental relationship. And in all of that, I had I lived like an adult. My brother and I raised ourselves. We lived in this apartment complex. I hung out with drug dealers and prostitutes and had plenty of sexual encounters from age 5, 6 on, children and adults. And I have plenty of stories about those things in my book. And the good news is that I was able to move beyond all of that, a lot of very painful years, but I'm in a state now of such forgiveness and appreciation of both of my parents that I understand my father, he's still alive, and I have a connection with my mother that I never had with her in life, in her now state of pure positive energy. So I got through all of that stuff, overcame poverty, dyslexia. I have a 10th grade education. I just was really left to my own devices to raise myself, and my family thought I was going to end up in prison. And instead, I found my path to a very lucrative corporate job, which made me a lot of money. I got to age 40 and realized that money is not everything, that I had all of this stuff that I thought I needed to be happy. And I had all this stuff and I was still miserable, and I was 100 pounds overweight and living in pain, addicted to Oxycontin and all this fun stuff that I'd manifested as an adult. So I spent the next 10 years getting off of that, the next few years, actually, not 10 years, getting off of that, really allowing the stream connection to flow that had been flowing to me my whole life. The thing that really got me through all of that was this inner voice, these downloads of thought that I've always received. And I taught myself to write it and then to speak it for the benefit of others. And the more I share the stream's guidance and wisdom, the more flows. And that's what I do now with my life. The stream and I together have created this practice of Taya, and Taya simply stands for trusting your abundance. And again, when we say abundance, we mean abundance of joy, abundance of clarity, and then an abundance of whatever else you want. But the abundance of joy and clarity is the key to all of that. And the practice of Taya is just a spiritual practice. It's not judgmental or dogmatic. Nobody's being worshipped. I'm not a guru. I'm a dude, just a guy, just a human being, still imperfect like everybody else. But the stream's wisdom is just so significant, and they bring a fresh message that I think can and will help a lot of people, and has already helped a lot of people. And I'm very grateful for that.
Dave, what is
Your feedback pretty bad.
What could you describe or explain what the stream is?
The stream is just my version of my stream of consciousness. It's the core of source energy. We're all part of source. We all have our own stream. People call it their soul consciousness, their higher self. The stream is everything. Ascended masters, angels, source, God, whatever you want to call it. We all have this flow of non-physical energy flowing to and through us all the time. And the reason that so many people don't believe that they have it is simply because they drown it out with a chattery mind, with doubt, with fear, with negative emotion. And mine, for whatever reason, had been coming to me very clearly all through my life. And at age 14, living in a very poor situation, and living in a poor situation where we were in a roach-infested 2-bedroom apartment eating cans of beans for dinner. My father had married a wealthier woman and they had a child together. So while my brother and I were living like that, my sister had a swimming pool and a jacuzzi and lived in a 4-bedroom house, their own master suite, had everything she ever wanted. So it was a real high contrast environment for us, because we did go and visit our father occasionally, and we would see how his other child was living compared to us. And I remember at age 14, this major download coming, that my life didn't always have to be this way, that I could have anything I wanted. I could be anything I wanted. It wasn't about education or connections or inheritance or any of that stuff that I was thinking at that point. I just needed to mentally believe it and trust it and place myself there. And I remember telling my brother that, and he thought I was insane, but I went with it. And by the time I was in high school, I had all the stuff that I wanted. I had a brand new car. I was wearing the nicest clothes. And it was crazy that I could manifest all this stuff in high school. And I thought I invented this thing. And of course, we now know that it's the law of attraction. It's been around as long as the universe has been around, but it didn't have a name back then that I was aware of. I thought I invented it, but it was the voice that was coming to me. But I chose to listen to that part of the voice and ignore the other parts of the voice that was coming to me for many, many years, choosing to focus on the stuff. And that's how I got to where I was at age 40. And now I listen to the whole voice, And then when I really started listening and really started writing and sharing and speaking it, is when it really started to flow significantly. And all of these new tools and techniques and things that really help people flowed from there. So I hope my 30-minute explanation makes sense.
Definitely. I just had to be right back. You hear my dog in the background. I'm going to go get him and stop him from barking. So I'll be right back. Okay, guys?
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
We'll take a tea and dog break.
I'm doing my best to hopefully not reverberate is John Fiore. Welcome to the show. Donald, good to see you here with us. I know you're traveling, maybe have reached it to Denver, Colorado. But I wanted to ask you, David, if you're an individual that is PTSD or is in the middle of exiting out of an abusive relationship of some sort, or you have endured assault, how do you get from that space of just being in a state of emotional paralysis and trauma to, how do you help walk someone at the beginning stages of the healing process, doing the work that you do? What could that look like for somebody?
Well, step one, of course, would be to get into a scenario where you feel safe. That is always step one. You've got to be in safety, because if you are living in fear and reacting to what's going on around you, safety is the top priority first. Getting out of the scenario that is harming you, that is threatening you. I do talk to people that tell me, usually I see people a little further along in their process, but tell me that they stay in an abusive situation because of finances. And I would guide anyone to do anything, and I would help anyone to do anything to get out of the abusive situation, because there's no amount of money or security or beautiful home or whatever that is worth being in a situation where you are physically, mentally, or sexually abused, certainly. And then once you're in your place of safety, really turning inward first, allowing that inner voice to come through, simply quieting your mind and understanding that we are often taught in religion that when things are going really, really, really bad, that there is a positive energy, God, angels, whatever, that will come down and swoop in and save us. And those connections are made sometimes, for sure. But understanding that your quiet mind, allowing your source connection to be realized, is something that you have more control over. You're not sitting and waiting. And what we want to do is get you out of that victim mode where you're sitting and waiting for something or someone external to help you, and get your quiet mind to a place where you realize that the power lies within you, no matter what has happened in the past, no matter who you think you are, because you've been in this abusive situation. And perhaps it's a cycle. Usually it is. Generally, when I speak to people that have had abuse, we trace back, and there was something of that nature that happened early on, and that vibration was allowed to expand and grow, which is very, very natural until you discover these tools to really allow your own strength, your inner power to come forth and manifest your path out of it. So get to safety first. The second thing is start a meditation practice where you're starting to connect with your stream. We all have this coming to us, because there's a lot of people that want to help, a lot of people that have programs, including mine. And if you're not connected to your stream, none of those programs is really going to work. And you're not even going to know if you are heading in the right direction or not, if you don't tap into your own intuition and start developing your own inner strength. And we're talking about spending 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, quieting your mind, feeling good about yourself, even when you don't feel good, even when you feel like, gosh, I manifested this. I brought this on myself. I can't believe I placed myself on the path of that. When we start learning about the law of attraction and we start realizing that we manifest everything, sometimes people dip into beating themselves up emotionally because we attracted this. It's sort of like we have just enough information to be dangerous at that point, but don't fully understand that attraction isn't about wanting it are deserving it or wishing it would happen. It really is about a vibe. Very often it's a vibe of fear. And we're taught fear. We're given doses of fear all day, every day in this society. So it's not unusual, and there should be no judgment about someone that is fearful and perhaps even feeling like a victim. But I really want to move people out of that victim mode, because when you feel like a victim, you are placing yourself in a vibration of being a victim. And until you can kind of flip that switch, and it takes work to do it, you're not going to sit and meditate. If you feel victimized and you've been victimized, you're not going to meditate your way out of it in a 30-minute meditation. It's a path that you're going to walk down. But you can really turn the tides and start setting intentions toward better things immediately, and setting intentions towards safety, towards recognizing your own personal power, toward being surrounded by people that are more higher vibrational beings, that are there to help you, that are there to assist wherever you need it, until you can really just fully stand on your own and assist yourself. Setting those positive intentions and quieting your mind and being what we call up the spiral is the most valuable thing that you can do, regardless of where you are after you're in a place of safety.
David, I'd like to piggyback on something you just said. There is so much information, and there are so many teachers and mentors and inspirational people available at no charge, for free, on the internet. Just if you just go into YouTube alone, podcasts and YouTube, there is so much free information. You could spend hours in each day, instead of listening to your own negative thoughts or your own low energy vibration spiral. You just got to hit search on YouTube or podcasts, and you could sit and start to shift your mindset relatively quickly, because there is so much information that you don't have to pay for. If you have limited funds available to you, you could begin your healing process for free, other than internet service. That's about all you need.
Yep. I was going to say, Jay, it's sorry.
Go ahead.
There's so much information at our fingertips that we don't even know how to search for, that it's even there to search for. But if you just start looking at meditation or anything on YouTube, you can start getting these high vibe meditation programs. And I've been doing that before I knew any about this. I just kind of found it for myself. So just kind of don't be afraid to search out and look for help where it is. It's technology's really come a long way where we can use it for benefit.
The technology and I have a guided meditation app, so I'm certainly not going to speak against guided meditations, but there's still that first step of quieting your own mind and trying to get to that, even if it's for a few seconds, just allowing that source connection to flow, and then setting an intention that you are going to find the right thing. Because Jay, you're right, there's tons of stuff out there. And not everything is right for everyone. I'm not right for everyone. Taya's not right for everyone. The stream is not the right message for everyone, certainly. We say all the time, you get guided to certain people and certain teachers and certain practices via your intentions. And you know when you found the right thing, if you're up the spiral, when you're in that painful place, when you're down in pain and sort of feeling desperate, easing up on that a little bit will help you find the correct path. But if you're really down there and you can't get out of that place, and I have been there, I know I've tried to meditate my way out of being very, very down the spiral to the point where I wanted to harm myself. And you can't, it's like you're in a box, and you can't get out of it. And when you're in a state such as that, the binaural beats, that type of music meditation, that can be very transformative, absolutely, and help you get your way out of there. We have tools at our disposal. Use whatever you need, but make your dominant intent improving. Make your dominant intent understanding that there is always a better day. There's always a light, as we say, at the top of the spiral. Even if you can't see it, it's there. And there have been times in my life where I wanted to end it all. I never took steps to do that, but I've been there. I've been to a suicidal place before. And I look at my life now and realize, gosh, I would have missed so much. And if I had made that decision at that point, if you know about polarity always is going to ebb and flow. You're going to go up your spiral into positive, and you're going to be taken down into negative. And yes, you can control it, but no matter what, you're going to have days that you just feel heavier than others. And if you're dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of post-trauma, that can add fuel to that downward spiral for sure. And you need to develop tools to walk your path. I like to use the spiral because it's almost like we walk our paths up that spiral and find the tools to get up there and feel a little better and a little better and a little better and a little bit of relief. And then when we get to the point where we can meditate and quiet our minds, what you're doing in meditation is you're connecting with source. That's what meditation is. A lot of people teach meditation. I talked to a yoga instructor once, and he was all about meditation. I said, well, do you know why you meditate? He said, well, just to quiet our mind. Well, why do you think you quiet your mind? You're quieting your mind to allow your higher self connection to be realized. And from there, that connection can help you go up into more positive territory. That's we call that neutrality, getting to a state of little to no thought, so that natural connection that's always there can be accessed and realized. You're just not drowning it out anymore. And that's what we do in our modern day society. Our minds are so active and so chattery that we drown out the source connection that is always there to us. And it doesn't matter how you label your source connection. Angels, ascended masters, God, Jesus, whatever it is, it's all pure positive energy, the source of all creation, and it's flowing to and through all of us and available to all of us. And when we allow it, by getting to that state of neutrality, it helps guide us up to more positive territory and can save us and bring us back from anything.
And I heard something about meditation, that prayer is talking and meditating is listening. And it's so true. And ever since I started meditating, it's changed my life completely. I never was one of those people. I was one of the ones that I can't meditate. I have ADHD. I can't meditate. Well, guess what? I'm meditating up to an hour a day almost. I'm not taking any ADHD medicine anymore because I can actually quiet my mind. And people notice such a huge difference. And it's just amazing.
To point out, a dull mind, and a lot of these drugs, and I'm not for or against drugs or for or against medicine. I always say, spiral, discern your preference and do what you want to do. But these numbing, these dulling drugs, these drugs, they seem to dull you. And that's not a connection. And I would say get yourself healthy enough to where you can wean yourself off of that, hopefully, so that you can allow your connection. And I would rather go down my spiral and feel like crap sometimes, knowing that I can get to that connection. I don't ever want to drown out that connection with a dulling medication, but talk to your doctor first. Don't listen to the dude with the 10th grade education.
Well, I've been on some of those medications that are completely numbing, and I couldn't believe how different and numb I did feel. And I don't envy anybody who has to be on that or feels like they have to, or it's not something it's not natural.
It's a stepping stone. If
Exactly.
you really need it, if you're really depressed, if you're really, I would much rather you numb your mind than harm yourself or someone else, for sure. So yes, take it. That's why I said talk to your doctor, but the conversation should be, how do I get off of this? To me, the conversation regarding any medication should be, how do I get myself off of this? Not, I'm going to live my life taking a bunch of pills.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, I tell you, I spent 21 years on 2 of those psych meds for anxiety. And that's where, to your point, David, that conversation didn't happen. And I had seen probably 5 or 6 different psychiatrists in different states that were kept prescribing the same meds for 21 years. And that was the end result. I was numbed out, and it didn't serve me well, and it certainly did not serve my family. It wasn't until I started my healing process that I woke up one day and realized it was possible I didn't need to be on those meds, because I wanted to start to feel what I needed to feel so I could heal. And I went and saw my doctor, And I told them I wanted to get off these meds. And since you've had me on these for 15 years of the 21, help me get off. What do we need to do? And within about a month and a half, I was clean. I was off my psych meds and all prescribed. And I've had maybe 5 or 6 breakthrough anxiety attacks, if you want to call it that, but just awareness of anxiety. But through the healing process, I've been able to learn how to have the awareness and how to walk through those feelings and release them eventually, so that I'm not living in that constant state of anxiety. So it's possible. It can be done. What you described is exactly how it works. I'd like to ask you, David, if you're, in your best experience, have you been able to see someone that has significant trauma from some type of abuse like we've described tonight, been able to, let's say, improve their emotional and mental state, doing it on their own, as opposed to reaching out for assistance and help from many different modalities? And
I healed a lot on my own. It took a long time, and again, knowing that I had this connection and listening to it from an early age helped me heal myself quite a bit. I will tell you, I understand that I am not perfect, but I have healed numerous things in my life. But I'm age 50, and I would love for people to get here sooner than it took me, because at age 40. Again, 100 pounds overweight, bad relationship, hated my job, addicted to Oxycontin, just not a good way of being, even though I was surrounded with all the stuff that I thought was going to make me happy. And then I spent the next 10 years realizing this full stream connection, really paying attention to all of it, learning to trust my abundance, working all of that. And that's when this practice of Taya was developed that I used to heal me. But now we teach this in 8 weeks and help people, and we don't heal anyone. We teach a spiritual practice that leads you to healing yourself. And if you haven't seen the testimonials, I think Deb probably has. The testimonials are crazy, off the charts. People healing themselves of cancer, and people manifesting big businesses, and people just doing all these incredible things. But also there are a lot of trauma stories in there that aren't shared because they're private. And I'm not going to jeopardize that, but there are a lot of stories of people that came in with significant trauma that have gone through this process and healed themselves with this practice. I don't think that it's the only thing for everyone, certainly, but it's amazing to me how, when you understand polarity, and if you read my book, I'm going to plug the book now, The Stream, Eternal Wisdom for a Better Life. We talk a lot about polarity. When I say we, probably half or even over half of this is channeled material from the stream, and the rest is my story, how I overcame my trauma, how I use the stream's teachings in my life. But we talk a lot about polarity in here, and that's really what the stream is here to share. We all get the law of attraction, we all understand it, but we don't necessarily understand polarity and up and down the spiral, and that's all about emotions. And when we've got things going on that trigger our emotions down the spiral, that's like hanging an extra weight around our necks. It just drags us down all the time. So what we teach is to release those things. And I've seen people change perspective on some pretty significant trauma, especially early childhood abuse type things, quickly. Just through this practice of looking at things very differently, going up the spiral, connecting with source, allowing that clarity to flow. It's life-changing stuff. And that's why I do what I do, because I know we can all improve, we can all heal, we can all do more than heal, we can all thrive regardless of what's in our past.
Now, for those of you that are watching us this evening live or on replay, Debby, who's co-host of this show, is a rape survivor, and I share that, Debby, because we obviously we've talked about this many times on the show. But I'd like to ask you, Deb, from your perspective, what held you back and what has helped you in your healing process? If you were to think back a couple of years ago to when this first unfolded for you and your own personal experience, what have been the things that you didn't do that could have helped you sooner, and what have you learned along your healing journey?
Definitely. Well, one of the major things for me, I forgiveness, and looking at it at a different perspective. You change your perspective, you change your reality. When I actually went to I had a mental breakdown, and I was in the hospital for a month. That's when I actually started meditating and actually started taking care of myself and actually taking the time to realize how many people I can actually help through my experience, how I can help myself. I was placing a lot of blame on myself because I have a pretty good intuition. I felt like I should have known that this guy was going to do this. But then I realized I'm not a mind reader. I didn't know what his intentions were. My intentions were pure. I wanted to meet him and talk to him, and he had different plans. So that was on him. It wasn't on me. As soon as I was able to truly forgive myself, I was able to let go and actually really heal. And I was able to change my perspective because what happened to me, I was able to create a process in Canada that police officers have to hand out to rape survivors and domestic violence survivors that I didn't receive. That if I had, I know I wouldn't have had the experience that I did with the police officer who pretty much told me it was my fault. So I think for number one, for the question is forgiveness, absolute forgiveness of yourself and other people who could have put you in that position. Second would be, you have to be able to look at what happened to you at a different perspective. It didn't just happen to you, it happened almost for you. I know that sounds a little weird, but it happened for me so I could help other people. And look what we're doing now. We're helping so many more people just from the show.
You know, sometimes quiet is good. Gives us a moment to just pause and process what we're hearing. I want to acknowledge a couple of comments that have been shared here through our guests. Cortez says, where was it? I'm going to scroll down till I find it. Well, John Fiore says, victimization is crippling. Bronnie, who's coming in from overseas, she says, meditation is very helpful indeed. She has, setting intentions has been so helpful for me. And I'm looking for what, I guess I'll come back to it. Oh, here it is. Donald said, people like you guys saved me from having to take medication. Very grateful to you. And, you know, you kind of described a scenario earlier in the show, David. But Donald talked about it on a show we did Friday evening where he also had a mental breakdown, emotional breakdown, and he was in a hospital for some time, Deb. And he acknowledged that there were those moments where he did not want to live, and he contemplated killing himself. And thankfully, he chose not to. He made the right decision, and he's on this incredible healing journey over the last couple of years. When he hit his rock bottom, I believe, when he was in a hospital. And it's just so beautiful to witness and watch people that have reached their lowest point and are finally willing to just surrender. You know, acknowledge that what what they were trying to do for them to help themselves is just not working, and that they need help, and if they're willing to reach out and open their minds and their thoughts, that perhaps there are resources available that are readily available today. And Donald's one of these guys that shows up no matter when I pop on into the internet, whatever show I pop in, he's there. He's very active in the community, and these are resources that he recognizes helps him on a daily basis to navigate through his healing process of his mind, body, and soul. And so I just want to just put that out there. Us men too, we also face different traumas and pains and wounds that we have to be, either we're willing to walk through and work on healing, or we just stay living in pain. It's not just about women. We as men also are affected by traumas and wounds in our life, as you have acknowledged, David.
Certainly, and everything, it's all relative to ourselves and our experience. None of this is a contest, of course, and it's always, what amazes me are the things that happen in early childhood that as an adult seem very insignificant, but when you go back to that early childhood, that 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old self, little things can be monumental, and if they're not dealt with, then they grow in magnitude and they turn into bigger and bigger and bigger things. And that's why I say very often I meet with adults that are 45, 55 years old that have things going on that we trace back to some early childhood event, and we work on detuning that stuff, because you think as an adult, well, that wasn't really that big of a deal. I'm an adult now. I've gotten past that. You've swept it under the rug. But those little things are the roots that trigger you and trigger you down into negative emotion. And if you know anything about the law of attraction, when you're down in negative, you're down there creating what we call your obstacles. And if you're down there enough, your obstacles can be significant. And that's what the work that we do is to get you out of that down the spiral negative space up into a positive place of attraction, and then get you setting intentions so that you're living an intentional life. And intentions and prayer really are the same thing. You're right. When you're meditating, you're receiving. And when you're praying, you're tend to be asking. And it's the same thing as setting your intentions. And when you're in a positive state of mind, it's very powerful. You can change the course of your day instantaneously by setting a positive intention. And now I don't leave the house. I don't get on a meeting. I don't do anything that I care about without setting a positive intention for it. Very, very powerful life tool.
I set my intentions with my alarm clock every morning, so that way when I wake up, I see what my intentions are, and then I remember to do them. And now every time before I drive, because you've said you set your intentions to have a safe, stress-free drive, I do that, and I got here all green lights. So
yeah, it's like magic when you start living your life that way, but it's really how we intended as humanity, and the way we lived as humanity for many, many years, until we got ourselves stuck in these religions and governments and things that are set up to advance us, that really control us. And now we're breaking free of that now. That's why we're exploring all of these things. We're moving past the need to be told what to do and how to live and how to identify ourselves and all of that stuff. And it's an exciting time. It truly is. As we collectively raise to a higher vibration, as the stream says, ascend to a higher vibration, there's just so much potential, not in technology and all of that. That's going to continue to unfold as we've seen, but just clarity and joy and abundance, and not perfection, but certainly more and more people coming into understanding how powerful we are as human beings, and creating our own experience and having a lot more control over it, and viewing and understanding that it's a path. It's not about being born into perfection, that we're all going to have our contrast, and the overcoming of all of that stuff and the living through it can make us stronger, wiser, more connected human beings. And if we find our paths to that, I just think that we're all so blessed, fortunate, whatever you want to call it, that we have found our paths to this. And that's why I want to offer that path to anyone, whether it's through a podcast, a boot camp program, my book, Facebook Lives, whatever, at any level, to find their path there, whether it's any of my stuff or not. That I want this for everybody because it's a wonderful way to live life, as you will know.
Yeah, definitely. And I was just going to say, I strongly believe like what Jay and I are doing is pretty awesome to help other people. And I love being able to share resources like you and had Brett Williams on last week, to be able to share resources with other people so they can get the benefits of what I'm getting too. So how is somebody going to find you on Facebook or online?
Online, The Stream of David, thestreamofdavid.com, Google The Stream of David or go to thestreamofdavid.com. That's my website. Everything that I do is there. And I have a Facebook group. I do have The Stream of David. There is a Facebook page for that, but my group is Abundance Breakthroughs, the practice of Taya. And abundance breakthroughs are all about releasing things from the past that allow you to have the breakthrough. It used to be called the power of forgiveness, but we went a little further with it because it really is about the practice of Taya. And Taya is in its infancy right now, but I'm seeing just such amazing results from this spiritual practice. And it's not about anything that even resembles any type of religion, because there's no rules, there's no judgment. No one's asking for donations. No one's being worshipped. There's nothing like that going on. It's a meditation, transgressor detuning type of spiritual practice that you can do every day of your life for the rest of your life and release any baggage that you have, anything that you've got that you're hanging on to from the past. Understand the entire world so that when you accidentally click on the news, I don't read or listen to the news at all, but every once in a while I open my iPhone and there's some headline that's popped up. It doesn't drag me down my spiral because I know it doesn't have to impact me. And when you start living your life this way, where you are creating your reality, where you can see everything that happens on our planet, even the worst of the things that we don't want to happen to us and we don't want to see happen to anyone else, you can view it from a different angle so that it's not as disturbing to you. You really understand the nature of contrast, the nature of our own contrast and everyone else's, and it's so freeing to start viewing life that way. And then when you're up there in that joyful place, then the abundance doesn't even matter anymore, like I said. And then that's amazingly when things and people and circumstances and events and experiences all just start to roll in.
I like how you have pointed out like perspective. You change your perspective, you change your reality basically. Only about 3 days after I was raped, I'm a photographer and I was doing a photo shoot, and it was a wedding of a best friend that I had to do it. But being able to look through the lens and change my perspective on love and hope and everything, that really saved me, is by just changing my perspective right out of the gate. And I think that changing your perspective really does, it changes your reality basically, hey?
Exactly. And I do talk to people who really like to hang on to their trauma story and tell their version of it. And we share our stories, but from a different perspective for the benefit of other people. But they really get stuck in their accounting of events and don't want to move on from that. Mm-hmm. And what I try to get across to them is you're sticking yourself in that victim place that will place you in the path of things of that nature again if you keep that vibration going. And it's not about letting the other person off the hook or anything like that. It really is self-serving. You need to take care of you because you're of little value to others if you're not taking care of yourself first. Mm-hmm. And we're all powerful enough to manifest anything that we want, to live happy, joyous lives, to be free of pain, to be free of illness. We can do it. And this is what I want for everyone. You've got to release and you've got to tell a different story, and you've got to change the perspective of the trauma that you suffered for your own sake.
I think also knowing that you can change your story is huge, because before that is your story. That's what we're conditioned to believe, is like your story is what you believe, what your parents believe, what they believed. When you know you can create your own story, with not making it up, but you can create it as you go. It's like choose your own adventure. It's quite fun.
Absolutely. Everything exists as consciousness except this exact moment.
Yeah.
So everything that's going to happen and everything that has happened exists only as consciousness. And we have the ability to shift consciousness. That's how we change and create a different version of the future than what we're living right now. You have the power, and I'm getting really deep into things that are difficult to teach, but we do have the power to shift our consciousness. And maybe I shouldn't say it's that difficult because it's not for everyone, but shift our consciousness and our recollection of what happened. I always use, and in the book, I think the stream did this first, and I love it, the analogy of the two siblings that are close in age that grow up in the same household, and they become adults, and they tell very different stories of what their childhood was like and what their parents were like, but they're each looking at it from their own perspective, and neither story is untrue. We get so caught up in the black and white of needing facts, but the truth is, things are always shifting. They even said the Zapruder film of Kennedy being shot, that new discoveries have been made for 50 years from one film. So how are we changing what's on a film? And how is somebody missing something 20 years ago, and then suddenly now we're seeing it? Consciousness shifts. And when you get that power, and you have it anyway, but when you realize that power, that you can shift your consciousness forward and backward to a version that serves your now and your future better, that's a very powerful tool. I'm
reading your book, and I've been following you a lot, and I like how you see your mom now. You see her as how she could have lived, not how she did. Can you go into that just a little bit?
That was something that she actually helped me with, because after she passed away, she died, and we never spoke for 20 years, the last 20 years of her life. I did not go to her funeral. I didn't think it was appropriate. I had mourned the loss of her already at that point, and had really disconnected. I didn't think of her often. And it was still a pain point in my life, though. And doing this work with the stream, after she had passed away, I came to the point of appreciation of her for everything that she did offer me, even in her worst moments, the contrast that led me to where I am. And when I got to that place of full appreciation, I had a dream about her. So she came to me in my dream state. And our dream state is us decoding the energy, the energetic realm, in a way that we can comprehend it. And so my version of her in her now state of pure positive energy was her living the life that I know she would have loved to have lived as a human being. She loved clothes. She loved little dogs. She never had any money. She was a younger, thinner version of herself, which I know she wanted as well. And she was surrounded by these beautiful clothes, and she had these little dogs, and she was in this beautiful lakefront home, and she was happy and joyous. And I know that that's not how she is now. She's in pure positive energy, and she's not in physical form. But that's my connection to her. That's how I see her now. And that's how she came to me in this dream state. And so now when someone asks me about my mother, unless I'm sharing those stories just for illustration, that's how I see her. Why not choose to see her in her now state, which she's great. She and I get along fine. So I have access to that version of her, which is how she is now.
And that seems like it would help you keep up your spiral instead of going down it by thinking.
Right. If I started going back and reliving in my mind the worst moments of my teen years, especially when things were really, really bad, or her never speaking to me, that would be painful and traumatic. And yes, that happened, but I don't have to dwell on that because it doesn't help me. It's not as she is now. It's something that happened that I survived. And I would much rather access her in her now state of pure positive, where she's released all of that human fear crap that kept her locked in that prison through her whole life. Her entire life she never got out of that. And that has been so helpful to me because I have made my life purpose not ending up like her.
That's wonderful. What I hear a lot is when you detune or when you go back and have nothing but appreciation is basically taking personal responsibility for your role in how you remember things and how you're taking yourself down to memory lane, and you can choose that. It's personal responsibility is what I'm hearing.
But how is this serving me in my now, and how is it going to serve my future? Yeah. Going back and replaying that traumatic thing over and over and over again, and having ill feelings toward the perpetrator or the transgressor, or whatever you want to say. It doesn't serve you in any way. You've got to shift that focus to help yourself.
Yep. Wonderful.
We're talking about, just for clarity purposes, we refer to it as changing a mindset, shifting a mindset. Part of how we do that, David and Debbie both touched on it, is through awareness of setting a new intention for today, a healthy intention for today, because today is all we have. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, and yesterday is already past, so that's old, and we can't change the outcomes of the past. So in this moment, it's about shifting a mindset with setting a positive intention for the moment and or for the day. As you said, you pretty much set an intention before you take any action, any physical activity of engagement with other people. And I think that's such a key. And you hit on a lot of good things here tonight, David, but we were just about out of time. I'd like you to maybe just take a few moments here, maybe just to recap some of the key steps to a female or a male that are at the beginning stages, that have been in a lot of pain, a lot of darkness of the soul for some time. What would you say would be the first steps to willingness to begin the healing process?
The first steps are to quiet your mind and allow your stream, your source connection to be realized. I sometimes catch myself saying to flow. It's flowing all the time. And the clarity that comes with that and the relief that comes with that is significant, but we seem to often downplay it in our society. Oh yeah, meditate, that's not going to help me. And I understand when you're really down that meditation perhaps is not readily available to you. So you've got to set your intention to find your path to it, because there are, as you said earlier, millions of avenues of self-help, books, podcasts, YouTube videos, Facebook groups. They're all over the place. But until you get centered and grounded yourself, you're going to bounce all over the place trying to find this and trying to find that, and this won't resonate and this won't resonate. Nothing's really going to work until you start your meditation practice and start trying to quiet your mind, even if it's for 15 seconds and then 20 seconds and then 30 seconds, and starting to just allow that to flow a little bit. Set the intention that you are going to find your path out of it and understand what polarity is all about. That's something that hasn't been taught a lot up until now. And now the stream and some others are really starting to talk about polarity and the fact that polarity impacts us all the time. Our vibration, which is the same thing as our emotion, is sort of drawn up and down this virtual vibrational spiral. That's why some days we feel good and some days we don't. And if we have trauma in our past, we are reliving that trauma very often because we haven't healed from it. And that trauma is like a weight around our neck that is just drawing us down our spiral more often than need be. And the thing about that is you are creating more things of like nature, and you see people that are living these unwanted circumstances over and over again, whether they're always broke or they're always getting fired from a job, or they're always in an abusive relationship, or their lives are just a complete mess where things are just always going wrong. I got fired from my job and I can't pay the rent, and I got, rear-ended today in a wreck and I don't feel well. All of that stuff is an indicator of where you are vibrationally. And when you start learning about this stuff, the worst thing that you can do is to start beating yourself up about creating all of this for yourself. You really have to understand that this is a natural thing and that you came here to live contrast. And if you've lived enough contrast and you found your path to this type of teaching, that's significant. And if it feels right and if it resonates with you, keep listening, whatever it is, whether it's me or somebody else. Go with it. Give it the power to help you, even if it's just a stepping stone, not necessarily a lifelong relationship or process. Let these tools do their job for you. Let that tool help you up your spiral a little bit, and find another tool and find another tool, and understand that getting up that spiral, getting up into positive emotion is the most important thing that you can do as a human being, because the more time you spend up there, the better you're going to feel, the more joyful, the more clarity is going to come through, You're going to start to heal physically. You're going to start to heal emotionally. And when we talk about abundance and abundance breakthroughs, that's what we're talking about. It's not about Lamborghinis and millions of dollars in yachts and all of that fun stuff. That stuff's great. But abundance is really an abundance of joy and clarity and getting up the spiral. So the Facebook group is Abundance Breakthroughs, the practice of Taya. Everyone's welcome to join. And you can learn more about the Taya practice. My website, again, is thestreamofdavid.com. Everything that we offer and do is all over there. Everything from the podcast, which is called The Stream of David, to our Facebook group that I just mentioned, to my book, all the way to Taya Bootcamp. And there is a whole Taya Academy section where you can learn about that. And that's for people who are really ready to release the past and really do the work to get up their spiral more often and have a major abundance breakthrough. That's sort of the holy grail of letting go and allowing your abundance to flow if you're really ready to get in and do the work to really change your life.
And I absolutely love your book, by the way. I got it a couple days ago, and I've never been able to sit down and actually read a book that long. And I'm already on chapter 6. So thank you. It's wonderful. I'm really keeping up track, and I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm glad you're enjoying it. The book is, one more time, The Stream, Eternal Wisdom for a Better Life. It's available on Amazon, paperback and download. And there's a lot of information in not such a giant book, but it kind of goes through my life story, how I use the stream to overcome numerous obstacles, and then an introduction to the stream. And then they go through 23 core messages that really sort of touch on multiple topics: why we come, what our purpose is, why positive and negative, why contrast exists, and how to overcome it, and how to use these tools that we talk about to start improving your life right away.
And it's helping. I was down low in my spiral, and I had that book, and I'm like, okay, if I'm sitting in my bed, I might as well just be reading. And it helped me. And I listened to your podcast, and it was like, okay, I'm good now. So thank you. You helped me.
Good. I'm glad. That's what
David,
it's all about.
I'd like to thank you for coming on the show this evening and participating and sharing parts of your story, parts of your past that were painful at some time for you, but as you've described today, you have detuned it, and you are now helping other people navigate through their healing journey, through the process. And I just want to acknowledge you and thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to step into the studio with Debbie and myself. Real people, real stories, raw. I just want to close out from my perspective to say, if you're watching us on live or on replay, you don't have to do this alone anymore. You know, if you're in pain, there are so many resources available right here, right now, between Debbie, David, and myself, all three of us. If you reach out to us through the show or through private messenger, either way, through Facebook, we can help you start right where you're at. And you never have to be alone, living in the darkness of the soul, living in isolation. There are so many beautiful people that are willing to step in and help guide you along your healing journey. You just have to be willing to surrender. And with that, Deb, I think we have ourselves a wrap.
I do, and I just want to say, just add to what you said, is just put your hand up. Just like we learned in school, to put your hand up when you need help. Just put your hand up, and we're here to help.
And with that, we will be back next Sunday. Have a beautiful week. Take it one day at a time, baby steps, and just do some self-care along the way. And David, thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Always
David.
good to be here. Namaste, everyone.
Namaste. Thank you.
We'll catch you next time. It's a wrap.